Hi guys, how you going? Campbell here from Autodidactic Channel. Hope you're all having a fabulous day. And today I thought we'd have a bit of a look at castles in Queensland, in Australia. And I didn't really know that there were castles in Australia or Queensland, but apparently there are some out there. And of course Queensland is a nice name. Australia, of course, the property of England, they say, named after Queen Victoria. We have a state called Victoria and we have a state called Queensland. Our other states are New South Wales, Tasmania for Abel Tasman, and then it's just West Australia, South Australia, Northern Territory and Australian Capital Territory. So not much imagination while naming the states of Australia. But I digress. Let's have a look. They say they've got 10 castles for us here. Now this is Perenella's infamous Spanish castle. It was the summer of 1913 when a young man named Jose Perenella sailed to Australia, built a castle. We'll have a look at this one in a bit more detail later. Now this one is called Brynfrid, I think, Brynfrid Castle, and this is pretty interesting, not very castle-esque, but nice stairway going up and windows down there. If you ask the locals of Ipswich about the Brynfrid Castle, everyone will tell you the story of the Welsh miner Lewis Thomas, who built the property in 1886 with 600,000 handmade bricks. Alright, anyone want to do the maths on that? That's a lot of bricks. On scratching deeper to understand what happened to the biggest residence in the town, there is a new ending each time. However, the most popular one recalls how a bunch of curious young cyclists wanted to uncover the fascinating story behind the mined estate and often took off the isolated site wanted to uncover the fascinating story behind the mined estate and often took off to the isolated site. While its history continues to remain a mystery, the Blackstone Castle, as it is popularly known, has gained attention of the mountain biking community in Ipswich. So it's just this mansion that we're told was built by a dude who's come from Wales, just built, like literally built, made all the bricks, built the house himself. And again, you know, they tell us, you know, he built the house. But I found this shot and look at this. It's not just a house. I mean, this is completely landscaped. We've got some, you know, very familiar features in the ground here. Huge house, not level. You know, we've got another big building down here. We've got walls here. We've got walls here, up here. And I mean, just looking at this looks like a hill, and it looks like it's multi-layered. And I've mentioned this before. It looks like there might be a lot more under this mound. And also, just look at where it is. Just look at the forest. It looks like it's been, you know, cut out of the forest. But the story is that some guy just turned up, made 600,000 bricks. You know, they don't tell us where he got the clay from, or, you know, where the kilns were, or anything else, or where he got the wood from, the iron, the glass, all of the stuff for the insides, for the trimmings, blah, 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 blah. You know, stone walls here, big retaining walls, more, you know. Is this another house here that's mud flooded? Look at that. 2 windows in the ground. I mean, you know, what the? So this, see, there you go. That's the front of it with its big tier, 3 stories. So that's the front of it there. You can see it's got the tower. It's 3-story. Here we go, 1, 2, 3 stories. It's got the tower at the front. Looks, I can't see if, the stairs were there then. They may have been, but this is definitely sunk. Look at that. You can see the dirt just from one level straight down to the other level. And again, no mention of all this stuff. They just talk about this. Looks like there's more buildings down here. I mean, these are the stories they tell us, and they expect us to believe that just, these random people just rock up and, for love and or for their dream, they just do the impossible. But it literally, that's impossible. Okay, this is Castle Glen. Now this clearly, this looks like a restaurant. This is clearly built in the 70s. It's just a restaurant with, brick turrets chucked on the top. So that's, that's not a castle. This one, it's pretty good. But again, I'd say this is new construction. Pretty cool. But definitely not old world. I mean, who would put a door in a tower? This though, Sunshine Castle in Queensland, this is a different story. Look at this. This is big. This has multiple towers, turrets, clearly, you can see it's a tall structure. This inner wall's even taller, huge, I mean, this is a completely different story to this, and definitely to this. This again looks like it's made like a house that's just made to look like a castle. They use that for weddings and things. They could have done a bit more with the landscaping. This is, not a castle. This is just a house. This is the oldest house in Queensland. It's quite a cool old house, but not a castle. And again, so there's not really that many castles in Queensland. There's a couple though. This Meeganya House, found this interesting just because. And you see this a lot in Australia. They use this, this ironwork that we're pretty familiar with. We see this on a lot of old buildings, similar stuff to this. And it's just everywhere on these old, we call these houses Queenslanders. They're up on stilts for flooding, to avoid flooding. So I'm just wondering where all this came from, because I don't think there was enough iron industries in Australia to be building all this stuff back in the 20s and 30s in the middle of the Depression. So I'm wondering if it was all found. I mean, did they find factories full of stuff? We don't know. Nice old lamppost in the front. But this castle, Sunshine Castle in Bli Bli. Sunshine Castle in Bli Bli. Now, there's not a lot of history. It says it was built in 1972, I believe. 1971. After much searching in 1971, Ian and Marcia Hayne purchased land in Bli Bli, which is the centre of the Sunshine Coast of Queensland. They chose the location because of its hard granite foundation and a knoll overlooking the Maroochy River and the surrounding cane fields. In 1972, workers commenced to build a Norman medieval-style castle. Its first stage was completed and opened the next year, 1973. So they're saying that this is a new construction. Now, I did have a look. Sunshine Castle, Bli Bli construction. Let's put photos. And just nothing. Nothing, it's just basically because it's a tourist attraction. All you get is just this touristy stuff. And you go to images and it's it's a big castle. Look, it's quite big. Look at that. Big, stone walls out the front. Familiar looking roofs in here. Round towers and turrets. And no construction photos. And the story is that this was built for someone's dolls. Bli Bli Castle was born and enjoyed its heyday for much of the 80s and 90s as a doll museum, which still had fairy tales on display. sewed by the lady of the house. It says up here, medieval. So, originally a local Scottish couple built the castle in 1972. I'm waiting for the time it's an Australian couple. To house 8 original fairy tale dioramas and some dolls. So they built this castle, they built this castle, right, this castle, with these big walls, stone walls. Look how high that is. Look at that. That stone wall that it's up on before they even get to the wall. They built this, a couple built this to house their dolls. 8 original fairy tale dioramas. Now, how big are dioramas? Because as far as I know, they're just like little, I don't know, all I've seen is on TV, you know, school kids in America make dioramas for school. I don't know how big a normal diorama is or what that is. Let's have a look, right? On the fly. Why not? Diorama. Yeah, so they're just basically, they're just like a scene that you build. So I don't know how big these dioramas were supposed to be and how big these dolls were, because, I mean, clearly they went a bit overboard with this to house dolls and dioramas. Now, of course, you know, they say it was built as a tourist attraction, but I mean, if there's only 8 dioramas and a few dolls in there, you'd be like, it'd be pretty empty, right? I don't know, that's and of course, no construction photos, nothing. It was just built, just by this couple, just built in a year too, in a year. It said it was built in a year. It does say that it was added onto later by other people. Oh, what's this? Bye Castle. Oh, hang on. Okay, so this says Bye Castle, Sunshine Coast, Queensland, 69 to 70. Right? It says here, somewhere, that they built it in 1972 and they bought the land in 1971, and that they were looking for the land, and the land they bought specifically because it was hard and had granite in it. So no mention anywhere that they bought a castle. This, and it's from Pinterest, so there's not going to be a story. This says Bye Castle 1969 to 70, so that's something wrong. But that roof there, that roof was somewhere in one of these pictures. God. Anyway, it was in one of the pictures you could see that roof. But then, I mean, look at this. Is this... See, there's that roof. That's the roof. That looks similar, but I mean, seriously. And this is moated and everything. Look at the size of that. I don't know. What do you reckon? What do you reckon? Was this just built? Because that's a big structure. I'd say this one, I don't know. I really don't know. It's just very big, very castle-esque. Supposed to be built in a year, they say. So maybe this, and then it was added onto, but that doesn't... I'm just trying to get a front view. So it's sort of saying it's... this bit here, which must be inside the castle, this sort of bit. I don't know, that's a lot of building going on. What do you reckon? Don't know about that one. And I mean, there's no construction photos at all. So this is the thing, I mean, just look at that compared to, you know, this sort of... And that, you know, this is very yellow, you know. I mean, this is weathered, obviously. I don't know. Don't know about that one. It would be a lot of work to build, let's just say that. You know, we've got stone walls out the front here too. You know, and not necessary to build these stone walls, because as you, like, these walls are in front of them. You know, why would they build them out of stone and then everything else out of sandstone? This is, again, he's up on a big rock footing, and again, look, it's up on a mound. So yeah, what do you think about that one? Is that a new construction, or is that an old construction with a new story? And I came across this castle in far north Queensland called Paranella Park. And it's this castle basically that's sticking out of the ground in the middle of the rainforest in far north Queensland. And it's really touted as this, you know, romantic place, and this man built it by himself over 7 years, built, and I'll show you what he built. And this is sort of how they describe Paranella Park. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, stood a Spanish castillo, nestled amongst the enchanted forest. The castle was grand, simply the grandest castle in all the land. Visitors came from far and wide, travelling the countryside in horse-drawn carts to experience the opulence of the Spanish castle and the surrounding forest. Merry was made, guests drank and ate, danced and swam, even fell in love in the enchanted gardens, the tunnel of love and the magnificent castle. This was Paranella Park. So there you go, it's a bit of a fairy tale. So Paranella Park was basically built by this guy, Jose Paranella, and he moved to Australia from Spain and bought 5 hectares besides Meena Fall Creeks in North Queensland and proceeded to build a castle. And here we have an old picture of the castle that Jose built. And as you can see, it's built right on the edge. This is the falls, the waterfalls I was talking about. You can see the structures going into the water. And this is his house. Now, some of this, you know, it looks like he definitely built the house, but you can kind of see the front here. This is very, very different to what he's built. But let's have a look around. So this is some of Paranella Park. And this, you will see this balustrading, this rock stone balustrading is everywhere and completely symmetrical and complete with all these sort of what he's using as flower pots now all over the place. Steps, you know, with the balustrades going up, built perfectly, all stone, multi-leveled. And he just built this as, it says that he built it literally as a place. He wanted it to be a gathering place, you know, like one of these places back in the 1930s where all the sort of rich would get together and hobnob. And that's the story. And as you can see, it's completely surrounded by rainforest. So it may have taken 7 years to cut this out of the rainforest. And these, he's calling tables and chairs, but look at these. Do you think these might be bits of a structure that he found or that was sticking out of the ground, and he's just come along and put these bits of stone on top? Because look at, you can see on this, it looks like a column with, you know, those striations. What are they called? Like scalloping, is that it? Like scalloped striations? There must be a proper word for that. But yeah, look at these. They're just popping out of the ground, and you can see they're all got these lines on them. This is it in 1937, and it said it was built in the 30s, so, you know, this must be just after completion. That's what they're trying to tell us. And in the middle here, you can see that we now have this fence. So, I don't know, maybe he built some of this. Maybe this big blank area in the middle of a rainforest is a bit of old world Photoshop. Who knows? Because this is what's inside that fence. As you can see, it looks very old. Got fountains in here. And this is one man built it all by himself, they're saying, in 7 years. And this is down at the waterfalls. And as you can see, this structure, stone, goes straight into the water. Got steps going up there, balustrading here. So this was a busy man, young Jose. Here's another shot. Now in this one, look at this. You can see, what do they look like? All the way along here. And even up under there. Now, you know, geologists would love to tell us that this is some kind of natural rock formation, but with what I've seen over the last few years, I would say this is some kind of ancient structure, apart from the fact that it goes right around here to this. And it does actually come around further as well. Here's another part of apparently what Jose built. This is an internal part of one of the structures. I think they're saying this used to be part of his house. I'm not sure. You can see there's a tree growing up here. And as you can see, now when they talk about this, they say he basically built it out of concrete. But clearly you can see this is bricks. Bricks, see that? And you can even see it in the walls here, that it's bricks. Large bricks maybe, but bricks nonetheless. So the story goes that Paranella Park was built in the 1930s by Jose Paranella. He lived 1888 to 1948, was a Spanish immigrant and arrived in Innisfail, Queensland in 1913, which is interesting because that's pretty much the start of World War One. Having sailed from his homeland, Catalonia, in northern Spain to plan a life for himself and his fiancée, Matilda. Matilda, is that a Spanish name? I don't know, it's definitely an Australian name, Waltzing Matilda. He applied for Commonwealth naturalisation in 1921, identifying his place of origin as La Valle in the province of Girona. Girona. In fact, his full name was Jose Pedro Enrique Paranella, and he was born on 26 February 1887. And it says that basically he was engaged to a lady, and he went travelling, and when he returned to Spain, she had married someone else. So he then proposed to her sister, Matilda, and married her. He came out to Australia, and he worked hard for 11 years, creating his wealth by buying, improving, and selling cane farms. Now, while there are many cane farms in far north Queensland, to be able to develop a farm and sell it for profit, and to do this multiple times in 11 years, is really a bit of a stretch, because back then in what are we talking, pre-1920 far north Queensland, it's rainforest, so to clear that stuff is not easy. So you'd need to be clearing the land, finding the flat land, clearing it, and then, you'd need a year or two of actually, crops to prove that it's a viable business to sell it. So that whole thing doesn't make sense, working hard for 11 years to make this money so we could go and build this castle. And then basically it just goes down, it says that, the first thing he built was his grand 47-step staircase, so he could shift his building materials between the lower and upper levels. Now that again, if you're smart enough to build a castle, you think you'd be smart enough to build, I don't know, a pulley, a hoist, rather than a 47-step staircase where you have to carry everything up 47 steps. And we're talking, this is a big stone castle. I mean, what are they trying to tell us? He was strapping stones to his back and walking up this. I mean, this is a bit silly. It also says that the first North Queensland's first hydroelectric plant was built in 1933 at Paranella Park to power the 13 acres. And basically they had movies on Saturday nights. He built a tennis court from crushed termite mounds, pavilions, refreshment rooms, cubicles for swimmers, and eventually a museum. And so he built all of this in 7 years by himself. And of course, as we heard, Paranella Park is a bit of a lover's place, and they have the Tunnel of Love. And it leads to Teresa Falls, so it's an actual tunnel that goes down into the falls. So this, I think, goes down into that structure that we can see in the lake below the falls. Constructed in the 1930s, dug open cut, constructed then covered over. The clay was used to colour the rough casting of the exterior of the buildings. Original plan to incorporate aquarium abandoned. So they're saying they dug it out of mud, then used the mud to cover the buildings that he built. Interesting. So these tunnels, let's have a bit of a look. So this is inside them. Now, does this look like a rough cut tunnel from mud? As we can see, we've got a doorway here that's been covered in. This is looks like a wall or something. There's, I don't know, doors, something behind there. This looks like the same kind of shot. But you can see, we've got a pillar here. So this, I don't know, this could be retrofitting. He could have done this, I don't know, but just the whole look of it, we've got stairways going up there. It doesn't look like a hand-carved tunnel from mud. Really? Does it? And here's another shot. So what do you reckon, guys? Is this a tunnel that he dug by hand out of mud and then used the mud to cover his house? Or is this maybe something that's a bit older? Pretty symmetrical too. It looks like, I don't know, it's got a bit of a lean, but it's got that, that perspective that we see everywhere, down to the steps in this doorway. Look how that's perfectly framed in this picture. So, old Jose was doing pretty well if he was doing that from fresh mud with a shovel. So I thought I'd also have a bit of a look at Innisfail, which is the port town where it says Jose landed, and it's pretty close. And it's pretty close to Paranella Park. And one thing, look at this statue. That's a big, tall statue. It doesn't really give me much information on what it is. I don't know, this top bit could be repurposed. This looks very old world, this bottom. But I don't know, he looks a bit Aussie with his hat on there, this guy. But I found this bit down here, and it says, Spanish migrants produced the world-famous Paranella Park tourist attraction during the 1930s, as well as the first hydroelectric plant in northern Queensland. So here it says Spanish migrants, that's saying here that the Paranella Park is attributed to the Spanish migrants, not to one guy called Jose. This is Innisfail, North Queensland, innisfail.oz. So this is a website from the nearby town, and it's got a different story. Suddenly it's built by a group. There were waves of migration from Greece, Malta and Yugoslavia, India, Pakistan, Philippines. The Shire spoke 47 different languages. And it also says here that it was settlers first began to move to the region in 1889. So basically this Jose character had turned up, 20 years after this town had started. And he was out there chopping down forests and making farms, apparently. So curiouser and curiouser. And of course you have to always have a look at the courthouse. So the Innisfail Courthouse. Here it is. Built 1939 by day labour. Okay, day labour. This is the courthouse in 1940. Built by day labour. I don't really even know what that means. People who don't work at night time, maybe? But I mean, look at this. Columns, porticos, the arch windows, complete some symmetry. Look at this. It's built around the corner, very nicely arched. Stairs going up. What else? I mean, come on. Built in 1930 by day labour, guys. Here are some other pictures of said courthouse. This is the front. This is a bit of a different view of the side of it. As you can see, it's a very large structure. Again, it's not completely level. Stairs going up, and you get these a lot too, these sort of vents down under the ground, to get air into those lower levels. But look at this, and at the moment the population of Innisfail is about 9,000. This was built in the 1930s, where it would have been a lot less than that. So very just over the top, unnecessary building. That's going to be a small pic. And here's another one, so you can see we just had a look at the side. This is the front, and even up this side, it's just... I mean, the way they build these buildings, this is what we would call Romanesque. Then we come around to this massive open foyer with huge columns. Look at the size of those columns. They are massive. And then different architecture at the back here. And of course, it's Australia, so they come and they whack a tin roof on it if it's in a country town. A few verandas, everything's good. And yeah, a few more shots. So there we go. This is what they were building in country Queensland back in the 1930s. And this is the Mother of God Church. Here it is. Here it is. I mean, this thing is pretty ridiculous. Look at the size of that. Now it says that this, here we go, nice internal shot. And this is what we see everywhere with all the cathedrals, we have, and they go along and they put the pews up the middle, and then you have this kind of, other sort of section behind the columns where they sort of try and say, oh no, it's really one room. So you always see these columns with the arches leading up to the front, all symmetry, all these arches match this arch. Clearly this was here before. This is, you see it all over the world. It's just an exact replica. This is a blueprint of something that they were building everywhere for a particular reason. Completely oversized and ridiculous. That this one that they say, so they say that there was a first church that was wooden, and that this one here, 1898, they immediately started building the church. Or maybe this is the third, maybe the second church fell over by cyclone damage, as they're saying. And isn't this a common story? They try and sort of put in that, there were all these other churches building up to it. They try and put in a timeline. It really did go from wood to a bigger wood to suddenly this. Nice progression, right? I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. You don't go from this wooden thing in 1891 to this massive, huge stone building, completely symmetrical, sacred geometry built in, the whole lot, in 40 years or something. 1922 is when they say the plans were drawn up. So, the 20s, 30s, they built this. Of course, in the middle of the Depression, that's what you build in a town with, less than 9,000 people in far north Queensland, Australia. So a completely ridiculous story. Here's another picture of it. Look at this thing. This is an older shot, and look at this big wall of mud. here. Isn't that interesting? This looks like it's been cleaned up rather well. The sides still look a bit dirty and shabby. But look, we have everything here. The Antiquitech, these little bits that stick out, you see them everywhere. They're like little knobby things. And yeah, just completely oversized for a tiny little country town in Australia. Here we have another shot. A nice shot here as well, showing that it's not quite level. And again, this you see a lot. It's not quite level, but it's built up off the ground. And I'm really starting to notice this everywhere. All these buildings are up off the ground. And what else do we know about most of these buildings? They have levels underneath the ground. So what do you think this is? And here's a shot from back in the 70s. Nice old Holden there. And you can see here, much higher wall down the back. And up here, that's no wall at all. Basically, that's one brick high. And that's a little bit, and that's higher than this wall. So that's literally ground level or below, and then it comes up to a couple of meters around here. And if we just go and have another look at this, see, look at that huge mound of mud. You can see that's where this new building is now. Here. So it looks like they've probably put these retaining walls in. And you can see it looks like they haven't even cleared this one flat. It looks like it's still pretty high. Definitely higher than down here. So Innisfail, there we go. Innisfail, Far North Queensland. Old architecture that just seems oversized, ridiculous. And for a town this size and this remote, it's really, because this is all without even asking the question of how did they get all the materials up here in, the early 1900s. So strange, strange, strange. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. Have a fabulous day, and I shall catch you all on the next upload. Bye for now.